Welcome to Housekeepers Half Hour. This is a reproduction of a radio show that was broadcasted by the United States Department of Agriculture in 1926. Disclaimer: do not assume contents of this production reflect current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices. This radio broadcast was released March 15th, 1926.
What shall we have for dinner? If every dinner could be equally easy to prepare, tasty, different from the last one, inexpensive and popular with the family, we housekeepers would cease asking ourselves this eternal question. Here's a menu that fulfills most of these requirements perfectly, especially with regard to the meat dish. Meat loaf or roll is one of the most economical meat dishes you can serve. Some of the cheaper cuts can be used in making it, and every hit that is not eaten hot is useful for serving cold in slices or for sandwich filling. Any lean meat may be used if gristle and skin are trimmed off. From 1/4 to 1/5 as much pork as beef is a good proportion. Too much pork makes an over-rich, greasy loaf. Many homemakers prefer to have a fresh piece of meat cut off and put through the grinder under their direction, or some like to take it home and grind it themselves. A very good loaf may often be made at considerable saving per pound from the trimmings the butcher accumulates from the more expensive cuts. If the pork is not added to the beef, a small amount of fresh suet should be put through the chopper with the meat. So many different seasonings may be used in a meatloaf that it is difficult to give an exact recipe. Unless the family objects to the flavor, chopped or grated onion should be added to the meat. A thick cream sauce or brown gravy or eggs will be needed as a binder. Fine dry breadcrumbs or cracker meal also will help to hold it together. The flavor is greatly improved by combining canned tomatoes with the meat mixture or serving them in a sauce over the loaf. The quantities of meat and other ingredients to use will be given under today's recipes. Coarse hominy, or samp, or pearl hominy, as it is variously called, is much like the hominy or cracked corn the pioneers used. The grain is split to remove the germ and is then hulled and polished by machinery. Although this kind of hominy requires much longer cooking than grits, it is very fine in flavor and much liked as a change. Lye hominy, which is similar, is often made at home in the country by boiling the grain in lye or potash until the germ will come out and then washing out the lye. In many places it may be bought already cooked, and it may then be kept in the refrigerator for a day or two and reheated as wanted. It is also sold in canned form. The dry, coarse hominy or samp must be soaked overnight and then cooked over a slow fire for 4 or 5 hours, or in a fireless cooker for 10 or 12 hours. A green vegetable is needed, of course, with every dinner, and perhaps you have not had kale lately. It is available almost everywhere in the early spring. Here is a way to cook it that preserves all the available minerals and vitamins. Melt butter in a heavy skillet, allowing about 2 tablespoons to a quart of minced kale. Drop in the kale, cover the skillet immediately, and cook with very moderate heat until the juices are drawn from the kale. Stir occasionally and cook in the covered skillet for 20 to 30 minutes. When the kale is tender, add just enough top milk or cream to moisten. Salt lightly, allow it to heat thoroughly, and serve at once. Kale cooked in this way is delicate in flavor, fresh green in color, and very different from the strong-flavored dark green boiled kale often served. For dessert, depend once more on your pantry store of home-canned fruit, such as cherries or peaches. Or if you are using commercially canned goods, you will find pineapple a pleasant flavor with which to conclude your meal. A plain sponge cake may be used with any fruit you decide to serve. Now that eggs are becoming more plentiful, you can afford to give the family the kind of cakes that require lots of eggs. A good recipe will be given in a few minutes. The menu in full is as follows: meat loaf, coarse hominy or samp, panned kale, canned cherries, peaches or pineapple with sponge cake. Today's best recipes: Ready with your notebooks and pencils now. Here are today's best recipes. Meat Loaf. 2 pounds of ground beef, ½ pound of ground pork, 1 onion grated, 1 cup of thick cream sauce or gravy, or 2 eggs, 1 cup dry breadcrumbs or cracker meal, 1 to 2 cups canned tomato, salt and pepper to taste, dried celery tops, or other seasonings if desired. Mix all these ingredients together thoroughly. Shape the mixture into a loaf, laying a strip or two of salt pork or small pieces of suet on the top, and place it in a heavy baking pan. Cook in the oven for 1/2 to 3/4 of an hour. Have the oven hot at first, but reduce the temperature toward the end. If the sauce or gravy is used as the binder for the loaf, make it with 3 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of butter or other fat to 1 cup of liquid. Sponge cake, 4 large or 5 small eggs, 1 cup sugar, 1 cup sifted soft wheat flour, 1/2 a teaspoon salt, 3 teaspoons lemon juice, 1/2 lemon rind grated. Because of their delicate texture, sponge cakes require more careful mixing and baking than many other cakes. This is a good general method to follow for sponge cakes. Beat the egg yolks until they are light and add the sugar. Then add the sifted flour with 1/4 teaspoon of the salt. Add the other 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the egg whites and beat them very stiff. Fold the egg whites into the mixture, and at the very last, add the lemon juice and the grated lemon rind. Pour the batter immediately into smooth, ungreased pans. For a loaf, a tube pan is best, or if preferred, sponge cake may be baked in muffin pans. Powdered sugar may be sifted over the top to make the crust more crisp. The oven should be ready for the cake as soon as it is mixed and in the pan. A large or medium-sized sponge cake should be baked slowly at about 325 degrees Fahrenheit. For small cakes, the oven temperature may be somewhat higher, or about 340 degrees Fahrenheit. A medium-sized loaf requires from 45 to 60 minutes to bake. When done, it shrinks from the pan. It may also be well to test it with a clean straw or a toothpick. After it is removed from the oven, invert the pan and allow it to cool partially. If it does not drop out easily, then loosen it gently with a spatula. Questions women are asking. Question: why is it being recommended that vegetables, especially the green leaf kinds, be cooked only for a short time and in little or no water? Answer: short, quick cooking of vegetables is being recommended in order to conserve their vitamins. Cooking in little or no water helps to save the minerals needed by the body. If cooked in a great deal of water, these minerals are dissolved in the pot liquor and often thrown away. Question: do Americans eat as much mutton and lamb as the people of other countries? Answer: they do not. Americans eat but 5 pounds of mutton and lamb per person each year, while Canadians and French each consume 10 pounds, the British 25 pounds, and the Argentinians 28 pounds. Nearly half of the total quantity of this product eaten in the United States is consumed in the states along the Atlantic seaboard. It is difficult to understand why this delightful dish is such a stranger on the tables of the Middle West and South. Question: we like roast lamb at our house. Is any other cut besides the legs suitable for roasting? Answer: yes. A good shoulder of lamb makes a roast almost as satisfactory as the leg. In addition, it is much cheaper. This cut of meat will roast and carve better if you will have your butcher remove the bones and tie it into a roll. The cavity left may be filled with either a bread or spinach stuffing. Question: what causes sugaring or crystallization in maple, sorghum, and sugarcane syrups? Answer: in the desire to make a syrup with a thick consistency, which is often favored by the consumer and which prevents it souring easily, the producer may carry the evaporation process too far. If this happens, then there may be deposited crystals of sugar in the syrup container before or after opening it. Syrups that have sugared should not be condemned on that account. Neither should this be taken as an index of its quality. Let the flavor be your guide. A heavy-bodied syrup without crystallization, which should please the critical consumer, can now be produced by using a special process developed in the Bureau of Chemistry. Question: from what plant is derived the candied citron used in fruit cake? Answer: the citron used for this purpose is the fruit of a citrus tree resembling a large, coarse lemon with very thick rind and a small amount of pulp. The pulp is discarded in preparing the candied peel. The tree can be grown only in warm climates. Question: what are the label requirements of the Federal Food and Drugs Act on canned fruits and vegetables? Answer: the only positive label requirement in the Federal Food and Drugs Act is that all canned food labels shall bear a correct statement of the net weight of the contents of the can. If other statements are made on the label, they must be true and must not be false or misleading in any particular. Question: what is kapok? Answer: kapok is a fiber which grows around the seeds in the pod of a plant grown chiefly in southern Asia and the East Indies. Attempts to spin it have not proven very successful, and therefore we have had few fabrics on the market made of this fiber. Trade names resembling this name in pronunciation have usually designated fibers made partially or wholly from artificial silk. Kapok is used in upholstery and mattresses and is particularly valuable as stuffing material for life preservers. Question: do pile fabrics wear well? Answer: the wearing qualities of these fabrics depend very largely upon whether or not sufficient extra yarn has been used to hold the pile into the body of the fabric. It is always well to examine such fabrics very carefully and note how readily the pile can be pulled away from its foundation. Question: is paper ever used as a textile fiber? Answer: there are some novelty fabrics and very inexpensive floor coverings being made partially of paper. However, they are not commonly found at the present time. Question: should I use an abandoned well for a cesspool? Answer: no. Such practice may pollute nearby wells or distant downhill wells and is prohibited by law in many of the states. Methods of safeguarding wells are explained in 2 farmers' bulletins: Farmstead Water Supply and Sewage and Sewerage of Farm Homes. A link for both of these bulletins can be found in the description below. Question: how can I get rid of a wet spot in my cellar? Answer: drainage is the surest and often the simplest remedy. From a nearby depression or ditch, lay 4-inch drain tile to and along the outside bottom of the cellar wall, thus intercepting the groundwater before it seeps into the cellar. Well, this concludes this broadcasting of Housekeepers Half Hour. I'm your host, Aunt Sammy. If you did indeed enjoy this broadcast, please consider listening to any of our other broadcasts. New shows are to be put out every week for new education and your listening pleasure. Until next time, remember to keep it tidy.
This production was researched and produced by BreakAway Empire LLC.